You know what's fascinating about great leaders? Sometimes their biggest struggles aren't the external battles, but the internal ones. And there's no better example of this than the story of Moses, a man who grew up between two worlds and changed history. Hey everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Donald, and today we have a very special guest, someone whose story you probably know, but we're going to get to know him on a much more personal level. Please welcome Moses.
It's a pleasure to be here, Andrew, though I'm still getting used to these recording devices.
Don't worry, we'll keep it simple. So, Moses, your life story is epic, like blockbuster movie epic. But it started pretty dramatically, right? Born into slavery, raised in Pharaoh's palace. How did that feel? Talk about a confusing childhood.
Confusing is a vast understatement. Imagine growing up surrounded by opulence, the finest silks, the most delicious foods, learning from the wisest scholars in Egypt, all the privileges of royalty, but all the while knowing, deep down, that I was Hebrew, one of them. My mother. I only knew her for a short time as a baby, but the memory of her love, the whispered stories of our people, it stayed with me. It was like living two lives at once, Donald. Always a sense of unease, like I didn't fully belong anywhere. I remember playing with Pharaoh's children, but always feeling a pull towards the Hebrew slaves, towards my real family. The sound of their work songs, their resilience, it resonated with something deep inside me. It was a constant struggle, a tug of war within my soul.
That makes total sense. So, you're caught between these two worlds. And then, the burning bush. I mean, that had to be a life changer. Can you even describe that moment?
Words. They truly fail me, Donald. It wasn't just the fire, though that was extraordinary. A bush ablaze yet not consumed. It was the voice, powerful yet gentle. It resonated deep within me, a voice I somehow knew even though I'd never heard it before. It spoke my name, Moses. Just that one word, and it shook me to my core. I felt so small, insignificant, yet also chosen. Like finally understanding why I was here. Like all the pieces of my life, the confusion, the unease suddenly clicked into place.
So, you get this incredible divine calling, but you're also hesitant, right? You're like, God, are you sure you've got the right guy? A lot of people can relate to that feeling of inadequacy.
Absolutely, I stammered. I doubted myself. I wasn't a natural leader. I was a shepherd, tending flocks in Midian. I wasn't eloquent. I even told God that. I'm slow of speech, I said. But the more I argued, the more I felt this nudge, this sense of purpose I couldn't ignore. It was like God was saying, I'll equip you. I'll be with you. I will give you the words to say. And he did.
And then the plagues. That must have been emotionally devastating, seeing all that suffering, even knowing it was part of a bigger plan.
Devastating is inadequate. It was soul-crushing. I wept for the Egyptians, even though they had enslaved my people. Seeing the Nile turn to blood, the suffering of the animals, the boils, the hail, the fear in people's eyes. It was terrible. It's not easy to witness such destruction, even when you know it's necessary. It weighed heavily on me. I prayed for it to end quickly, for God to show mercy.
Which plague was the hardest to witness?
They were all difficult, each one a fresh wave of horror. But the death of the firstborn, that was devastating. The cries of the parents echoing through the night, the loss of innocent children. It was a pain I felt deeply. It reminded me of the pain of slavery, the loss of my own people, the children taken from their mothers. It was a pain that resonated in the very depths of my being.
And the Red Sea. Talk about a miracle. What was going through your mind in that moment?
Pure terror, Andrew. Unadulterated terror mixed with unbelievable faith. The water was towering over us, Like two massive walls, the Egyptians were closing in, chariots thundering towards us, the ground shaking beneath their hooves. It felt like the end, like we were trapped. And then the sea parted. It was breathtaking. A moment I'll never forget. A moment I knew would be told for generations. I saw the hand of God at work, a moment I knew would define us as a people.
Amazing. And then Mount Sinai, the Ten Commandments, standing in the presence of God. What was that like?
Indescribable. Utterly indescribable. The mountain trembling, the thunder, the lightning flashing. I felt the weight of God's presence, the immensity of his power. It was humbling, terrifying, yes, but also transformative. I felt like I was in the very heart of creation, witnessing the divine order of the universe.
But then the golden calf incident. Talk about a gut punch.
Betrayal, pure, stinging betrayal, disappointment, anger, yes, but mostly heartbreak. These were the people I was leading, the people God had chosen, and they lost faith so quickly. It made me question everything. Were they truly ready for the promised land? Was I truly the right leader? Had I failed them somehow?
You led them for so long, through so many trials. What were some of the biggest challenges of leadership?
Patience, Donald. Above all else, patience. The constant complaining, the doubts, the rebellions. It tested my patience more than I ever thought possible. They yearned for the comforts of slavery, forgetting the bitterness, the whips, the loss of freedom. It made me want to give up sometimes, to throw my hands up and say, let them go back to Egypt. But I learned that true leadership means serving even when you're discouraged, even when your own heart is breaking, even when the people you lead doubt you.
And you didn't get to enter the promised land yourself. That must have been tough.
Of course it was. I yearned to lead my people into that land. It was my dream, my heart's desire. I had seen it in visions, I had imagined it for so long. But I learned that faith isn't always about getting what you want. It's about trusting that God's plan is greater than your own. It was a hard lesson, perhaps the hardest, but one I had to learn. It taught me humility and the true meaning of surrender to God's will.
Looking back, Moses, what are you most proud of?
That I remained faithful even when I doubted. That I tried my best to follow God's will even when it was difficult. That I loved my people even when they frustrated me, even when they turned against me.
And what message do you hope people will take away from your story?
That even ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they trust in God. That even when we make mistakes, we can be forgiven. And that faith, even in the face of adversity, is always worth it. That God is always with us, even in the darkest of times, even when we feel alone. That his love and his mercy are boundless.
Moses, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It's been truly inspiring.
Thank you, Donald.
That was Moses, folks. What an incredible story. Let us know what you thought in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing interviews. See you next time.